Finally, thanks. Okay, I'm busy setting up this thing to record, so I've got to wait for it to stop transcribing. Okay, I think we're sorted. Right. So, yeah, I don't care. You don't have to put up your hand, just interrupt me, just unmute yourself. I don't care about those kind of protocols. So, as I said, this is to try and get us slightly ahead. Oh, please mute yourself, whoever that is. Brucey, mute yourself, but so let me just get back to the chat. Right. So, as I said, there's a lot to be done and achieved in a very short period of time. Ultimately, you're going to do what is a full research report. Now, obviously, we try and get you at least to a point of having a title. I'm not so sure about the corporate governance and the digital postgraduate, whether they'll ask me to do the titles. I normally help with titles, but we'll sort that out in the meeting tomorrow. But we'll at least have an idea of the kind of topics you should consider in terms of your research. So it is research. If you remember back to third year, you will recall that you would have done some element of research in your third year, and in there you would have learned about quantitative and qualitative. You would have learned about interpretivism, critical realism. You would have learned about your positivism. If I say those words, for who here is that brand new, not heard those terms before? And there's no need to be shy. So everyone has got a pretty good idea of what that is. The paradigms, yeah, Michaela, spot on. Okay, well, that's pretty good. Right, so just to take us through the kind of policy things that we have to look at, in terms of the policy things, there are a couple of regulatory things and a couple of guidelines that I have to attend to. So the first one is essentially, sorry, that's my cat. Essentially taking us to a point where we have to provide a group like this who aren't necessarily qualified in management. Who we have people who are engineers, we have people who are doctors, etc. here, and essentially give you an opportunity to take the kind of content that we've shared with you over the last year, and also whatever you have in your undergrad, and turn that into a research project. Ideally, if you want to really benefit from it, try and do research within the context of what you're doing as a job. It makes it a lot easier for those of you that are getting paid for, that your costs are paid by your company. It gives them a chance for you to give something back to them as well. So you'll see the kind of things that we have there. It's about working qualifications, but it really is just so that you can go through the process that should you ever do research within any other context, you will have some sort of foundation. So our focus is on foundation. It is about providing you the core elements of actually conducting research. There's a lot to do. Our process is different. I'll discuss the process. Any questions at this stage? So please remember, this part to me is important. It has to be within the broader area of management, the digital, I did write it down, and I don't have my booklet here, and then corporate governance. But try and link it back to what you do as a job. It should make it easier. Should you want to share questionnaires for people to complete, or should you want to get people interviewed? I'm going to go through the module purpose. I've just rearranged the slides slightly. So you can see in terms of the module purpose, there are a couple of things here that we have to be concerned about. The first one is about the actual gathering of some sort of first order research. Now, whether you do that through the kind of questionnaires if you're doing quantitative, or interviews if you're doing qualitative research, we don't really mind. The choice is yours. So if you're an accountant, if you are more numbers oriented, I would imagine that you're going to adopt a positivist paradigm and you will do quantitative research. We have supervisors that can look after both quantitative and qualitative. And every time I say supervisors, I need to put money in a jar, because it is actually pod leaders, but I also look after the honors, and there we have supervisors. The second part is that we want you to create a research problem. In terms of research, everything starts and finishes with your research problem. If you do not have a research problem, you do not have a reason to do research. Now, I told a group of University of Zululand lecturers that once, and I was told that my thinking is colonial. It's not colonial thinking. If you don't have a research problem, you don't have a reason to do research. I didn't get the understanding why my thinking would have been colonial there. So it's about finding a deficiency. It's about finding a gap. It's about seeing the difference between the ideal and what is. So the first part of what you'll focus on after today is to go find that little bit of deficiency, to go find that research problem. And then lastly, it is then to, based on the data that you've collected, put together a set of recommendations. So there'll be a process of analyzing that information. If you're doing qualitative research, you're either going to do a thematic or content analysis. If you're doing quantitative research, you'll do some form of statistics. I don't know whether you are going to go all the way to doing correlation, but if you want, I think we should allow for that. Again, that might not be the same in the people not doing management. They might limit you to descriptive statistics. So have I said any terms at this stage that you're unfamiliar with? That's impressive, guys. Michaela, you know all of this stuff. Okay. Hi, Sinako. How are you? Tanya, you know all this stuff. Okay, that's wonderful. Okay, and there's no embarrassment if you don't know it, guys, because I just make stuff up. I don't even know it. So in terms of the different submissions, there will be ICE tasks. Yeah, as a rule, my students already know. The people that did COMP with me, you know that we get our 10%. The ICE tasks will be loaded. They'll be on ARC. My people, my ICE tasks will be on ARC. Again, you guys would have to check with your lecturers in the other disciplines. The different submissions is this, guys. Starts off with your secondary research. So it'll be a literature review, counts 20%. The submission dates, I don't know if the pass is out yet, but we will give you some time in terms of that. Now, once you've got your research problem in the next 2 weeks, I would start reading up on it as well so that you get a bit ahead of this process. There's a heck of a lot to do in a very, very short period of time. So, and we'll chat about how to do research. If everyone keeps coming, I'll show you how I do research and how we find information. Right, and then the second one is your proposal. So if you've ever studied in any other institution, you will know that often with proposals, that is the scariest thing in the world because it is a real pain to get it approved. We try and prevent any issues with the proposal by making sure that your titles, your topics are not sensitive, and I'll discuss that in a second, by making sure that your titles are researchable. So we try and get ahead of that process of actually approving your research proposal by making sure that by the time you get there, you've not got rubbish that we've got to deal with, that you've got a decent topic, that you've got a decent title, that you have got something that's researchable, that you've got a decent research problem. And then your final submission, part 3, that I'm talking rubbish, it is a presentation. We have to finalize how this will happen. I would imagine that your presentations will be to your pod leaders. You'll get introduced to those pod leaders based on the kinds of topics that you select. And then lastly, the summative, and that's a fully fledged document. So in terms of the summative, it's going to look like a heck of a lot, guys. And I just want to give you an idea of what that final document looks like. I'm going to try and just give you some kind of idea of how much work goes into this. So this is one of the students that I had supervised 2 years ago at Westville. But you'll see that it is a significant document that you're building to. We'll share these documents. I'll share these documents with everyone here. I'm pretty sure your lecturers will do the same thing. But there is a lot of work that goes into this. Fortunately, these documents are quite standard. This is a nice example of a bit of quantitative research. I will share that with you. So this is within a positivist paradigm, but there is a lot of information that goes into this. Now, it's not at the same level as as an honors in terms of the honors side of the NQF level 8, but you'll see there's quite a bit of information that goes into that. The one thing that we also do is that each of these build on the previous. So by the time you get your research report, other than changing the tenses in some of your chapters, you would use the feedback from submission 1, from submission 2, from submission 3 to create what is the ideal research report at the end. But everything builds on everything else. But if we can get it sorted here, if we can get this pretty good, then everything should fall into place. You will have the following moment several times during the first, I'm going to say, guys, 2-3 weeks of doing this. And it happens to every single person. I've been supervising students for, I don't know, so long that it's not even worth trying to remember. You will convince yourself that you are the dumbest person that has ever walked this planet. And if that happens, please remember what I'm saying tonight. It happens to every single one. If you're sitting in class and you're thinking, oh my gosh, these people are so together and they've got themselves sorted, they're not. They believe they're as dumb as you are. It is a natural feeling. Well, this is my daily life, Tyler. So, that's why I can talk about it so freely. I mean, that's why I have to go to therapy. You get to know what dumb is, and then you meet yourself and you think, oh gosh, that person's intelligent. But the reality is that you will have that kind of moment. I promise you. Trust me on it. Everyone is going through that. There will be moments in this little 6-month journey, not that it's a full 6 months, that you will believe that you are the thickest person in this world. It is just the reality of this. But I promise you, when you get here, there will be an aha moment somewhere in here where you will go, oh my gosh, this was fun. Because remember, this is the first time in your entire education journey that you will have an opportunity to contribute in a very, very, very small scale to existing theory. Now, it might be a piece of theory, it might be a piece of information you might add to a best practice. But for the first time in your education journey, you are going to contribute some knowledge to academia. Now, if you have done I know that one of my students in my class has a PhD, so I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to people who, for the first time, is doing a postgraduate diploma. So just remember, once you're doing this postgraduate diploma, this is your opportunity to finally create a bit of knowledge and add to knowledge. So that happens, that aha will happen somewhere here. This is tough. But remember, it's meant to be tough, because if it wasn't tough, you would have everyone do this qualification or your qualifications. I'm not much of a motivator, as my students know. Any questions at this point? And you can write it, I promise you, you can write it on a piece of paper that here I felt dumb, and you can tick every time you feel dumb, and then you'll say my aha moment, and just remember, Henny is right. I like to hear that I'm right. It will happen. Okay. So on this journey, we use different pods. Yeah, absolutely, Almost, because we break it into these bite-sized chunks, and each of these elements also has their own bite-sized chunks. And I hate this term, and I'm so sorry for using it, but it's how you eat an elephant. I rather think of Pac-Man and eating the little pills. That's my kind of eating elephants, rather chasing ghosts. So here is the model that we use in terms of the pods. So the first one is that you will be allocated to a person that will look after between 7 and 10 students. The allocation should happen on the basis of the topics that you select, will also happen on the basis of whether you do quantitative and qualitative. So we have supervisors who are qualitative, we have supervisors who are quantitative, and there are a couple of us that can do both. I love saying us because it makes me sound important and less dumb than I really am. So what will happen in terms of these pod leaders is that you will meet at 4 different submission points. Okay. Now, each of these submission points go away. Oh my gosh, when life hands you lemons. So at each of these submission points, you will meet and you will get guidance in terms of what will happen. Please also remember, you will receive from me examples of research reports. So it's not as if you're going to be completely blind here. I've got numbers of them that I will share with you. Okay. In terms of the pod leaders, we have something called calibration meetings. Now, I put this in, although it doesn't apply to the students, it's important to remember that what we try and do in these calibration meetings is to make sure that everyone is on the same page as the lecturer. So my approach, and I don't know how the other lecturers will approach it, is that I tend to know every single one of my students' topics. I talk about your topic. We share information in the lectures because we have so little time to do this. So how's it, Ruan? You've popped in.
Hello, Henny. Good, and you?
Yeah, I'm good, man. I didn't see you pop in there. Sorry, but are you looking after corporate governance or the other one?
Yes, corporate governance is my lecturing group, and I might also be taking on the pod.
Okay, thanks, Ruan, for that. Ruan, please interrupt at any time. Guys, Ruan is obviously from the other side. He's going to do the lecturing. Just to say, guys, I will not be taking a pod, okay? I'm a little bit overwhelmed for the second part of the year. Those calibration things are important so that the lecturers and the pod leaders talk the same language. The one thing that we don't allow, guys, is us being played off against each other. So be very careful to not do that, because it becomes really problematic when there is this kind of conflict that is created as a consequence of trying to play people off against each other. So we try and get everyone to talk out of the same voice. Okay, and then, oh gosh, no one saw that. So in terms of the ethical clearance meetings, so your supervisor will be part of that. We will see how it's going to unfold because we've got a very big class. I would imagine it's going to take this a similar format to what we did in honors, but there I'm talking to the pod leaders. So in terms of the pod leader's role, and I've stolen this straight from the guidelines for a supervisor. Supervisors are with honors people. You can see the kind of things that you can expect during those contact sessions. It's the idea of giving you some sort of sense of, are you on track, what you should expect, what you shouldn't expect. And you can see the kind of stuff that we expect from the pod leaders. It's about standards, it's about making sure that when documents get to them to be marked, that they actually are in line with what we expect from NQF level 8. You can also see the other stuff, and in particular, time management. We have a lot to do in a very, very brief time period. So one thing you also want to remember, other than the fact that you will believe that you are dumb, the aha moment, is work on this every day. Even if you just spend 10 minutes, those of us that have done these post kind of grads, you stay away from something for a week. You don't even remember where you were prior to that. So a bit of time every day. I know it's unrealistic to expect a bit of time because you lose your train of thought incredibly quickly. I was going to say something else. It'll come to me in a second. And then obviously to get you through ethics clearance. And as I said, we preempt the ethics clearance issue by making sure that we, by the time we get to the first submission, have dealt with anything that shouldn't be there. And then also assist with data analysis. Again, we will make sure that you are with quantitative people, those of you that are going to do a quantitative bit of research, and with qualitative people. I will teach both in class to show you. You often question what you whisper. It's exactly it, Michaela. In my case, what I was drinking, but yeah, I think that's pretty accurate, guys. And then just also um, your recommendations in terms of what you believe should be your bit of contribution to knowledge. Right. And then just also, this is what your lecturer will do. You can see there, we'll take you through the research process. I will make sure that I teach quantitative and qualitative data collection, and then also just the kind of discipline specific methodologies, the kind of theory you require as a foundation. In terms of my approach, guys, I know every single person's title. I know that I've got about 69 students, but I will know every single person's title. I will know what you're doing. We'll talk about your research in class. We'll make time. Okay, so please don't worry about that. But I'm there to give the theory. My approach is slightly different because of the nature of this particular approach. And then just the pod. Yeah. So the kinds of things we expect from you. Yeah. Please arrive for your meetings. Both Ruan and I supervise honors, and we have students that we've never met that we supervise who don't pitch for meetings, who don't pitch for interactions, and they are lost, and we see it in their submissions. Guys, you have to commit yourself to this module for the next couple of months. And then also just the other bits we expect from you. I'm pretty sure there will be memorandums of understandings going out to the pod leaders where you both sign a bit of a contract where you agree your own contribution to the research. Okay, and then just other bits and pieces in terms of that. Please just remember, guys, here we are not, oh gosh, that's the one I had to take out. We don't have the capacity to do drafts. But please just remember, we're not language editors. We're not here to edit those kinds of things. So if you need, see the Writing Center. We'll make you connect with the Writing Center. We'll reconnect you with the library in terms of the research processes as well. Right. So the stuff that we have to be concerned about during the ethics meeting, yet we start concerning ourselves with this right at the start. So the first thing is the kinds of things that you need to remember and think about when you start looking at your topic, when you start thinking about your topic. So the kinds of things that would cause physical or psychological harm, we're not going to allow that, guys. You won't even be allowed to do that at a master's level. Please just also remember the one thing I forgot to say is that this is the platform for you to do your master's. In the class that girl came from, that I showed you her information, the year before her, there was a woman who had finished her postgraduate diploma. She now is in the process of applying for a PhD. So just remember, this is the platform to move into the master's, to move into the PhD. We are looking to launch the master's next year. So please just remember, take it as that, because research is a core part of that level of study. And then other bits and pieces to avoid. Yeah, illiterate people, children or minors. So we are very strict in terms of that, guys. So please just remember, when you write your title, when you write your research problem, if you are going to deal with 18-year-olds, please make sure that you say adult Gen Z students, so that we know that our focus would be on adult Gen Z students. And then just also pregnant women, and other people who will have specific physical demands, prisoners, and also persons with mental or diminished mental capacity. Be very careful. We will make sure that it isn't, or I will make sure, your pod leaders will make sure that you don't fall into this trap. This will be sorted right at the beginning, but this is what we look at when we look at it from an ethical clearance perspective. Okay, and then also high-risk studies to avoid, sensitive, personal in nature, forms of deception, and then obviously a power relationship between you and someone exists. So these are the things that you need to have in the back of your mind throughout your research. So we will always consider the ethical issues. Even if it's low risk, there are things that we have to consider. There are things around informed consent. There are things around giving people the right to record you, the way you store your data. All of that stuff becomes important. And then also just making sure that we maintain high integrity amongst our researchers. And you can see the other stuff. How will we store our data? How will we password protect it, etc.? Getting consent to take photos and recordings, getting consent should somebody want to take part in your research. And then there's the consent form. We give you pro forma consent form, so please don't worry about these kinds of things, but you'll see it, and that will be attached. Those consent forms will be attached to your ethical clearance. And then just also, there will be an ethics clearance letter given to you. Some of this detail might also change because that is the full-time approach. And then that's it. So it doesn't mean we're the end, because I'm going to take you through the first submission so that we can start thinking about titles and topics. Are there any questions at this stage? Who is feeling quite panicked right now? Is anyone feeling quite panicked? Because if you're not, you don't understand what's happening, guys. That's so horrible. Oh, don't worry. Don't run yet. Leonie, don't run yet. We've got this. I promise you, I've done this for a long time. Ruan's done this for a long time. Yeah, no, it's worse than that. Okay, we'll chat about liquidation. That could be, fantastic, Michaela. That's amazing. We'll make you a pod leader. Yeah, I don't know how to say it. Is it Tanji? When you say liquidation, is that in terms of a business, or is that in terms of getting liquid of an alcohol composition into your system because of this lecture? Because liquidation has a lot of sensitivity around that topic. It's unlikely, if you want to do that as a research topic, that we'll allow it. Okay. Do you want to explain a little bit in terms of that as your topic? Tanji, I can't say, I don't know if I'm saying that right.
Hi, Doc.
Hi, how are you?
Fine, thank you. How are
Please
you?
pronounce your name.
Tanji.
Tanji, okay.
Yeah. Air Namibia
Yeah,
was a state entity in Namibia. It was the national airline, and they closed down during COVID.
okay.
And I understand there were not really sufficient systems and processes in terms of regulations that could accommodate the process properly. So
Okay.
up to now, it's still just something hanging in the air. It hasn't been winded down properly.
Okay.
So I wanted to maybe just have a look at that.
You see, and are you doing corporate governance, I'm assuming?
Yes, corporate governance, Doc.
So I don't want to step on Ruan's toes here, but you could potentially look at, you know, something along the lines of preventative action to be taken in the case of that airline. So you could interview, if you have access to people like managers, etc. You can do an exploratory study there. Ruan, do you want to comment on that?
Yes, I agree with you. So definitely, one could churn out a researchable topic there. It's a slippery slope in terms of exactly how you frame it, but certainly something can be worked out. One wouldn't get too close to the sensitive areas in terms of, the vulnerable group impacted by that and that sort of thing. But we can definitely work on something.
Tanji, you've got something there. I mean, we can turn that into a topic. We've got to look at it from a corporate governance perspective, and I know you've explained it from a corporate governance perspective, but you can definitely, in my mind, I'm thinking qualitative research. I don't see it being quantitative, but it could be, you know, and excuse me if I do this because, but you can look at I'll just type it in here and Ruan can have a look. I'm really overstepping my line here, exploring potential corporate governance changes to prevent and it's not the best English, and I apologize, to present similar liquidations within the context of SEOs, state-owned organizations, SOEs, state-owned enterprises. You can use something like that. That is not ideal. But you've got something there. So what could we have done? Not even changes in corporate governance to prevent similar liquidations. Okay. Rowan, I'm sorry, ek praat som Afrikaans. Rowan, I don't know what you think about that. We can work with something like that. That's exploring, not exploding. Oh my goodness.
I actually quite like the exploding. I thought you were.
That's why we don't drink during class.
I thought that was a clever wordplay, Henny.
Okay, perfect, Tanji. Right, so get your topic early, get your title early. So to just show you the stuff that we expect from you in terms of the different submissions. Right, so here is part 1. And yes, some of you might be haunted.
Sorry, Doc.
Yeah, go,
Hi, sorry. I just wanted to find out, in terms of the topic I'm doing corporate governance. I wanted to find out, does it have to be in line with corporate governance?
Yeah, so it has to be within the broader framework of your study area, but I would do it within that broader framework, but I would also try and do it within the business that I'm at or with a business where I have contacts in.
Okay. Because I'm currently working for a municipality. I'm currently working for a district municipality, so I'm just trying to figure out what my topic would be.
Within municipalities, we have so many issues with municipalities and audits and things like that. You know, I mean, an area that I know that one of my ex-master students is looking at the moment is he's looking at the role of citizens and within the context of corporate, in terms of within the context of corporate governance. So looking at their role and how they can and what they can do to ensure that corporate governance is maintained. Okay. Again, I'm really deferring to Ruan here because this is not, I shouldn't be getting too involved in this, but there's definitely something there.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Oh my gosh, the rail industry. Who are you with, Relebohile?
I actually work for Microelectrica, so we manufacture parts for Alstom and Transnet.
Okay. What kind of parts?
It's mainly components that go within, we fit them into the trains. So the passenger trains for Prasa as well as the locomotives for Transnet.
Okay. Well, again, we know that Transnet is fraught with fraud, corruption, and we've had some nonsense with them. Even Prasa. There's definitely, from a supplier perspective, you can look at, corporate governance guidelines for suppliers to state-owned enterprises. because there's a lot of space that can be done in terms of that. If I can show you quickly, and mind you, I don't really plan for lectures, but if you do this, oh my gosh. So if you want to see what is out there at this stage, just do this. And if you want to do anything, guys, all you do is type what you think your topic is, and then type those 2 words, and you'll get a pretty good idea. I will talk about how I use AI for this as well, so don't worry about it. But you'll see there are already some articles that you could have a glance at. So all I did was that search: corporate governance ethics or rail transport suppliers. So just do that search, go and read and have a glance at it. And the same applies to everyone who has a topic. Type the topic broadly and go look at what is out there. Okay. I will go through this again in detail. Okay. So let's have a glance at, just please excuse me. Let's have a glance at the first couple of submissions. So there are the different components. And again, the reminder, sorry, is this showing you that side? Because sometimes they blank this out with protects on the document. Can everyone see the document? Thanks, Tanya, for that. Okay, so this is just an indication how everything builds together. So part 1, part 2, and part 3 culminating in that one. And again, very important in terms of this process. Take note of the feedback. Everything builds on everything else. Get it right at the beginning. It becomes a lot easier later. So in terms of your field of interest, guys, you can have a glance at this, your broad field of interest, and we'll look again in a second at how we do titles if I've got a bit of chance. Take this. This is already, the second semester documents aren't uploaded, so just go to REMY in first semester and download these things. I can also just share it if need be because I've got all the documents already. Have a glance at that. Okay, and then we'll go through that. You can read that. That's what we've done there. Right. So this is your first one. Okay. This is your first submission. Right. So in terms of your first submission, and that's why we try and get this done early, it's this idea of your specific research problem. Now, we'll go through this tomorrow and the day after in terms of these different submissions, but a research problem is a deficiency. It is the gap between what we expect to happen and what actually happens. So unless you have that specific problem clear in your mind, you're going to struggle with this process. Keep thinking about what had happened. The airline was liquidated, and obviously the ideal would be to have prevented that. So keep thinking of a particular issue to deal with, a headache, and try and narrow that. Don't try and change the world. You try and narrow it. Try and keep the problem very, very narrow, very specific within the context of the area where you want to research. So we'll spend a bit of time on topics and things tomorrow almost, and we'll also look at how to do it yourself. Of course, these slides will be made available. Well, this isn't a slide. This was downloaded from I don't know where, from the portal. Okay. So get your research problem sorted, get your deficiencies sorted, get the gap sorted. And then look at your literature review. Now, in terms of the literature review, now this is unplanned, because really and truly this was unplanned. But so if I were to do a literature review on that particular topic, corporate governance ethics for rail transport suppliers, scholarly articles, there is my research. Okay. Now, just remember, these have to be peer-reviewed articles. We are very strict in terms of that. We take marks if we use Indeed and any of those silly things. But there's already bits and pieces for you to read, and you can do it with your own topic as well. So in terms of the literature review, the one thing that will come out of that literature review will be a set of themes. Sorry, did I close my student document? I just want to see that I did. Okay, my apologies. I'll just open it again, this side. So the one thing that will come out of your literature review, and it appears that this is something that people struggle with. They don't get an understanding of what a theme is, how these themes are put together. Again, we'll discuss it, but what will come out of this will be a set of themes. Let me just use the same one again. Okay, so something's happened with my laptop now. What is going on? Please just give me a second, Heidi Matt. Apologies for that, guys. That's why you have an 18-year-old hanging around to step in because his dad's an idiot. Okay, so yeah, here is a nice example of the final document. I'm not going to go through the whole one, but it really is to focus on the literature review. But you can get an idea of what our titles look like. Yeah, a pretty good title. You'll see that this is a nice quantitative bit of report. But what I want to do is get to that. So in terms of your literature review, you will put together your theoretical framework. We'll talk about the theoretical framework again, but the theoretical framework essentially would be the blueprint of the theories that would guide your thinking in terms of your particular topic. So we generally help with the theoretical framework, and you'll see she's used two theories, perceived value. The essence of her research was to look at whether real value was drawn from people who do feedback in terms of organizational culture and climate. In terms of the review of literature, so you'll decide your theoretical framework. You'll also then do your literature review. Now, the theoretical framework we can help with a bit later. The literature review will be a series of themes. Now, the one thing to avoid is not to give us a summary. It is an integrated discussion. A summary would have been if she only used Khan. I see she's got Bucker in there as well. But you'll see that it really is reading a lot of articles and then combining those articles logically to give you some sort of concept that would guide the thinking that those articles have created. You need to have at least 3 themes, guys, 4 themes if you can. You can see here again her second theme based on that topic, but again you can see vast numbers of bits of articles read and books read here as well, and again an integrated discussion, not a summary, and then there as well. So the way to get there is when you get here to this part here, and you start reading these articles that you found, is to just create short summaries of those. And then from there, integrating those summaries into your literature review. So the first thing that you have to do is your literature review then. Hold on a second. Apologies for that. So in terms of your secondary research, you can see there's 6 academic sources. Guys, you're going to need more than 6 sources. This is the bare minimum, and I wouldn't want to do the bare minimum in terms of this, okay? And then you'll also talk about your research paradigm. We are only allowing you to adopt either positivism or interpretivism. There's not time to do critical realism. To try and do a combination of quantitative and qualitative is impossible. Positivism would be stats and numbers, and then interpretivism is obviously interpreting people's views, experiences, emotions on particular topics, and done within the context of qualitative research. Again, 3 credible resources. Yeah, that's the bare minimum. Please, please, please don't go beyond the, please go beyond the bare minimum. Okay, so each of these will give you this in terms of the document. So we give you a rubric so that you're able to actually assess yourself. Now, there'll be slides on every bit of this particular document. So you can see in terms of your introduction, I would take a bit of notes now, because again, we'll go through this, but your introduction is there to grab someone's attention. It is there to grab someone's attention. It is that kind of opening statement that would give a person the reason to look at this particular document. So if we look at what this student did, okay, she did that. She had this statement, quote, and then from there she transitioned into a discussion. So it's about grabbing someone's attention, taking that and bringing it into your particular topic that you want to research, and then giving us a roadmap. In this document, I will initially discuss my research topic. I will do a theoretical framework, a literature review, etc. That's hers. Let's have a glance at this one. Sorry, coughing away over here. Let's have a glance at her introduction. So this is what she does. Grabs the attention, brings it into the context of her topic, and then hopefully gives us a roadmap for this document. You'll see that there's quite a bit to do here, but your bit for the first bit is here, guys. So this is the final document, your literature review, your theoretical framework. We'll discuss theoretical frameworks. I'm pretty sure Ron will help with theoretical frameworks as well. I'll try and find time in the next 3 days to help with theoretical frameworks as well. And then the review of the actual literature. But in terms of the introduction, grab attention and then bring that attention grabbing bit to your specific topic, and then tell us the roadmap. In this document, I will be doing the following. And in this document, you'll be doing a couple of things. You will give us your theoretical framework, and you will give us your literature review. Okay. And then you will decide your paradigm. Again, interpretivism or positivism. We will have slides on every single thing. And then here are some of the quality issues we look at, the quality of your resources. Please make sure that you use peer-reviewed sources. I will find out, has there been any communication from the library in terms of when they will see you? Okay, I'll make sure that I organize that. It is in place. We just need to get those dates, okay? And then also your writing style. The writing style, please do yourself a favor. Keep it simple. Honestly, we don't get impressed by big words and long sentences. Ek is Afrikaans, I don't even understand big words, to be honest with you. So in terms of the introduction, you've got an idea of grabbing attention, discussing the topic, giving us a roadmap of what will happen in the document. We will then look at your theoretical frameworks. You will select one theory. You can choose theories, 2 theories if you want, but if you've got a really good framework, then obviously one theory is enough, but you can have more than one theory. And then it is to go through and read in order to create your different themes using that search that I suggested earlier. And then the rest of the stuff that we do. So that is the first document that we have to deal with, guys. That is the first document. Any questions at this stage? And if I've scared you, trust me, we know what we're doing. We've got this in hand. Your big job is to find your topic and find your problem over the next couple of days. Taylor, you okay? Okay. Any questions at this stage?
Sorry, Doc.
Yeah.
What was the when you were typing under Google Scholar? What was that? Those 2 words that you
Scholarly
wrote?
articles.
Scholarly article. Okay. Thank you.
Scholarly articles. Okay. So guys, I'm going to stop the recording now, and then I'm going to spend a bit of time helping people with topics and taking the first bit to give topics where we can. And Ruan, please jump in at any stage. So okay, I'm going to stop the recording because I don't think people need to listen to this next process. So we want to spend a bit of time